Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. In today's video we have some new details for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Ever since we got the teaser trailer, a lot of leaks have been dropping, and specific ones worth talking about are the role of Qui-Gon Jinn and an important reference to Padme. So without much further ado, and without any more jibber jabber, let's get straight into it. Now once again this comes from Making Star Wars, who revealed this information while on a live stream with myself and Star Wars Santa. As always guys, there are major spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to hear them and you don't want to be spoiled, this would be the time to click away from the video, but otherwise, let's get to the nitty gritty. So they start by setting the scene. When we meet Obi-Wan Kenobi a decade after Revenge of the Sith, he's lost all hope. Their sources say that the lonely and broken Jedi reaches out in the Force and calls out to his former master, just as Yoda instructed him to do on Polis Massa. In the show, cut off from most social life, living in a cave, Kenobi attempts to learn to contact the closest thing he ever had to a father. And at the beginning of the show, when he reaches out and calls for his old master, absolutely nothing happens. He doesn't hear the voice of Qui-Gon and it's crushing. They say that life is not going as expected for Kenobi. That glimmer of hope we saw in his eyes in Revenge of the Sith, when Yoda told him he could commune with Qui-Gon, has faded. Obi-Wan is calling out and Qui-Gon is simply not answering. And on top of this, Owen will not let Kenobi have any interactions with Luke, so for all intents and purposes, he's alone, and he's also working a hard job, as we saw in the teaser trailer. This is really hard for Obi-Wan, and it sounds like it's getting in the way of his training, and the most frustrating thing for Kenobi is that he doesn't understand what's holding him back from communicating with his old master in the Force. And it's reported that we see him in silence while he attempts to reach his master. Now, apparently things start to change when Kenobi goes on the mission to rescue Leia. Along the way, he meets hopeful allies, he sees resistance and rebellion forming throughout the galaxy. He experiences the spirit of Anakin's daughter, as even at such a young age, she is assisting in an underground railroad in defiance of the Empire. And in the middle of the show, Obi-Wan moves from hopelessness to hopeful, as he realizes he's not alone in this fight. A big turning point is experiencing the beginnings of resistance, and there is hope. However, Kenobi is only starting to see it now. So then they get to the point where Kenobi fights against Vader. As we know, there are going to be two fights, but the first one does not go well for Kenobi. But one takeaway from the first fight is that he's re-energized, and a strategically sound Kenobi becomes more determined than ever to stop Darth Vader. And their second fight takes place on Mustafar's rocky moon. It's also worth noting, guys, that between the two fights, that's when we're going to see flashbacks to the Clone Wars of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is going to be searching his mind during that time for Anakin's weaknesses. And so when they fight again on Mustafar's moon, it's during this fight that Qui-Gon finally appears to Obi-Wan as a voice, encouraging him and assisting him in the battle against the Dark Lord of the Sith, the boy they found on Tatooine and Obi-Wan trained after Qui-Gon's death, who is now Darth Vader. To be clear, this is just Qui-Gon's voice, acting as something like Mickey from the Rocky films, and the great thing about this second fight is that Obi-Wan has his mojo back, and a big contributing factor is that he can hear Qui-Gon's voice. This gives him confidence and guides Kenobi for the first time in a long time, and he knows he must win because they're going to win this fight against evil, and he has work to do. Now obviously because of events that happen in the original trilogy, we know that Kenobi and Vader survive both fights, but in the second fight, Obi-Wan once again has the high ground and Vader is severely injured. And so after the second fight, we come to the final scenes of the show, and this is a big one. When Obi-Wan finally returns home to Tatooine, we see him enter his cave after this adventure, and it's clear that Kenobi is a changed man. He is not the man we saw lying on a floor, beaten and destroyed in the first chapter. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Master. And this is when Qui-Gon Jinn appears to him as a fully fledged Force ghost. That's right, my dear friends, we're going to see Liam Neeson as a full Force ghost. While he was alive, he did not complete the training to become a full Force ghost, just a Force voice, but in the netherworld of the Force, he completed the training, and that's why he appears to Obi-Wan. And the series ends with Obi-Wan having connected with the living Force, and with his spirits raised, he is now ready to begin his work with Qui-Gon Jinn and become more powerful than any Sith could imagine. And the hopeful, uplifting ending is knowing that Kenobi is no longer alone. But Making Star Wars say there's probably probably more to it because of the secrecy surrounding the production. Very little is known even to scoopers and leakers. They say they're not sure if Qui-Gon has any words as a full ghost, or if he simply represents Kenobi's victory that our hero is no longer alone. But just to know we're going to hear and see Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn is phenomenal. And so now guys, I just want to touch upon Padme. During the aforementioned livestream that I was in, I asked Making Star Wars if we're going to see flashbacks to Padme. He said that while we're not going to see her, during Obi-Wan and Vader's second fight, Obi-Wan is going to use Padme against Vader in order to try and manipulate him to turn back to the light. This is the moment that's also going to explain Vader's line to Luke later on in Return of the Jedi, when he says, "Obi-Wan once thought as you do." During the duel between Obi-Wan and Vader on Mustafar's rocky moon, Obi-Wan is going to reference Padme's dying words in Revenge of the Sith. There's still good in him. We don't know Obi-Wan's exact wording, but he's going to throw Padme in Vader's face and say something along the lines of, "If your true love Padme could see the good in you, why can't you see that in yourself?" That's going to be a very emotional moment, and I think Vader's going to respond with anger. A lot of really interesting details here, guys. It sounds like the show is going to be an absolute nostalgia fest for fans of the prequels. And not just that, but I love that Deborah Chow and Joby Harold are respecting this time period between episodes 3 and 4. We've also been told that this story is very self-contained, so it's going to be much more satisfying than shows like the Book of Boba Fett, and much more consistent as well. And so finally, my dear friends, Crimson Reign issue number 3 has given some backstory to the Book of Boba Fett chapter 6, specifically to do with how Luke Skywalker had Yoda's lightsaber. In chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, Luke presented Grogu with two options: to return to Din and choose the Beskar armor, or to choose Yoda's lightsaber and become a Jedi. Grogu chose the former and reunited with Din, but one thing that a lot of fans were confused about is how Luke had Yoda's lightsaber in the first place. He lost it in his duel with Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, and the weapon was then publicly destroyed by Padmé Amidala in the Vader comics. Well, Lucasfilm have finally explained this in Crimson Reign issue number 3. Qi'ra somehow knows that Yoda survived Order 66, and she gives the mysterious archivist the task of trying to track him down. When telling the archivist of his story, Qi'ra mentions that many lightsabers were melted down in the Imperial Plaza, including one of Yoda's. It's a small line, but a giveaway that Yoda had more than one lightsaber during the Age of the Republic. We also see a panel once again of Padmé Amidala destroying Yoda's lightsaber, but the wording confirms that Yoda owned more than one. He almost built one on Dagobah but then refused to, but in this comic it's confirmed that when he was a Jedi Master, a Grand Master, he indeed had more than one. We still don't know how Luke acquired the lightsaber, but we're probably going to see that in an upcoming comic. But this panel seems to answer the question from the Book of Boba Fett, and it's a logical and straightforward one. As I've said before, Crimson Reign and subsequently the Hidden Empire are going to be really important to live action going forward, especially when they reintroduce Boba Fett and other characters from the Book of Boba, as was teased by StarWars.com. But let me know your thoughts of this. Do you like this explanation? And tell me all of your thoughts of the Kenobi news as well. But with that said, my dear friends, that brings us to the end of this Star Wars news update. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and a massive welcome if you are. And if you want more videos that are not found here on YouTube, while also getting access to our Discord server, then click the link down below. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg, have a good one.